Hey there gang, this video is going to be the first one that is going live on my new channel, Model Behaviour Wrestling. I thought I would put it up here on the main channel as well, so that anyone who might not know about my new venture can see the kind of stuff I'm doing. So guys, I hope you enjoy this. Hello there gang, and welcome to the first ever episode of Model Behaviour Wrestling, the Earth's mightiest pro wrestling video podcast. So take off your pants, crack a beer, and let's talk about the sport of kings. Let's talk about pro wrestling and AEW's top 20 greatest matches of 2022 so far. I was going to do a top 10, but quite frankly, with the talent and ability and match selection on display, that's just not possible. So we're going to do the top 20 AEW matches of 2022, and it's coming up right now. First up, we have Claudio Castagnoli versus Zack Sabre Jr. from AEW/New Japan Forbidden Door. Wow, Vince McMahon said one time that if you have to replace someone with someone else, then the replacement needs to be better than the original thing. You gotta do more to please the audience because you're taking away what you originally promised. And oh boy, yes, Bryan Danielson, I'm not editing that, would have been amazing. And that is still a dream match that we want. But if you're going to take him out, then to replace him with Claudio Castagnoli, liberated from the WWE, what a fantastic replacement that is. You couldn't have asked for anyone better. And yes, I will argue that is bigger than just seeing Bryan Danielson. Yes, Bryan Danielson is maybe a bigger, more iconic name in pro wrestling, but we've seen him in the AEW context already. We're used to him. The bloom is not off the rose, but it's like, oh yeah, it's Bryan Danielson. He's going to be amazing. We're used to that. But now Claudio Castagnoli in a first-time appearance. Chef's kiss. Going up against Zack Sabre Jr., one of my favorites of a long, long time now. Took me a little while. I wasn't one of those first people who was watching him in the UK going like, yeah, this guy, ZSJ, technical wizard, he's going to be big. No. He was big. And then I discovered him. Like, that's fine. I'll be the first to admit that. But oh boy, once I did. It's not just the fact that he is a mat-based grappler who is so freaking entertaining in the ring. It's mesmerizing to watch him go through his different holds and transitions. But the fact that he is just such a likable wanker. That is awesome. His backstage promos are hilarious and effortlessly so. He's not trying to tell jokes. He's just a funny guy who is so full of himself for every correct reason because he is so good. And the way that he cut his little promo beforehand on the Blackpool Country Club, that was marvelous. And also it set him up to be taken down a peg or two, and that is where Claudio came in. And ZSJ did not lose a single thing by losing this match. It didn't drop him down in any sort of estimation or ranking because Claudio Castagnoli is a beast. And they went toe-to-toe. Everything that Claudio did power-wise, Zack could actually counter with his technical prowess. And they went tooth and nail in this match. What an amazing showcase to just show what Claudio can do in this independent setting. An amazing opponent. What a fantastic match. I loved this. CM Punk versus Penta, two of my all-time favorites. I love Penta because just the look is one of the coolest looks I've ever seen on a pro wrestler. Right up there with the Great Muta. Just this wonderfully toyetic look to the character with the skull mask and the face paint. And CM Punk is just CM Punk. And it kind of felt to me like he was sort of doing his wish list. I can imagine he had a little list in the back of his mind. He was like, I want to wrestle this guy. I want to wrestle this guy. And then we just got to sit back on Dynamite and watch. And it was wonderful. Being able to see this match between two of my absolute favorites that, up to a year ago, I never would have thought would have ever been possible is so great to have CM Punk standing in the ring in front of Zero Miedo. Oh, gosh, it made a huge fan out of me. And they clicked for the most part, but then some parts they didn't. It was a little clunky, but that's what I like about CM Punk, because being a former pro wrestler myself, toss, I can see when things aren't quite right, and I know what's going through your mind in the ring when you're trying to kind of get back on track, and that actually makes it so much more interesting to watch. I love the story told. I love the fact that Penta he catered to CM Punk's style and vice versa. Really great clash of styles. So much fun to watch. From AEW Dark, one that really went under the radar, but you need to go and find, is the Dark Order versus the Elite. Man, I love some stupid comedy bollocks. And this was stupid comedy bollocks of the highest order. As soon as you put Brandon Cutler in a ring, that's just, you know he's going to be doing some stupid stuff. And this was so much fun. I love pro wrestling when it's fun. Yep, I am absolutely one of those work rate wankers who's going to be like, oh, well, he whiffed on that Hurricane Runner. But at the same time, if you just show me some silly pantomime bollocks, I'll be right there. I'm one of the core audience who will be sat in a village town hall in Blackpool Pleasure Beach watching the utter nonsense of some independent show and loving every moment, eating it up like kibble. And it was that on a big AEW stage. Well, an AEW Dark stage, not that big, but that's what made it more fun. It was more intimate. So you could just see this silly pantomime nonsense play out before you, and you know what? No one took an insane bump, no one landed on their head, no one but got hurt, but oh my goodness, I was thoroughly entertained from bell to bell. Dark Order versus the Elite in the Ultra Bollocks match of the year. Go check it out. Bryan Danielson versus Christopher Daniels. First of all, a little naming thing there that the WWE would not like. Two people who have Daniel in their name? Impossible! People won't understand. They'll be confused. No, it's fine. We can handle it. It's okay. And Christopher Daniels has always been a nostalgic favorite of mine. I was blown away when I saw his TNA stuff with AJ Styles, and I was lucky enough to go to, I think it was Super Showdown in the UK in 2005, where the main event was AJ against Christopher Daniels for the TNA X Division Championship, and they just blew the roof off the place. So I've always been a big fan of CD and the way that he's changed his personality and character throughout the years. So I really am so invested in him as this aging veteran who's still trying to hang on there. And then Bryan Danielson just being a prick. You knew that Danielson was going to win this. That was never in doubt. But the fact that Christopher Daniels kept fighting so hard the whole time, and he could still go. He wasn't just this old man who was getting battered. Oh, hell no. In fact, he was busting out some of his mid-2000s A-game offense against the American Dragon, which was so great to see because you're like, he can still do it. He can still go. There's still the old fallen angel there, but it just wasn't enough to take out Bryan Danielson, who was just at the peak of his dick heel prowess of being the best technical wrestler in the world and happy to just step on anyone to prove it. This was a great dramatic match that, I kind of want to go back and watch right now. CM Punk versus MJF from Dynamite, their first clash. And I gotta say, honestly, since MJF has left for now or is on hiatus, I don't think there's any storylines to really sink our teeth into because this was so good, so well done. And their first meeting was terrific. Set the table for what was to come later. But this little contrast of styles, the stories, the personalities going into it, the pro wrestling was very, very good. And it was a great testament to how CM Punk has been able to, A, retain what he can do in the ring, and then the stuff that he has sort of lost, as age will do, he's been able to make up for with his character. And it showed how valuable he still is to pro wrestling. And MJF, it was just another little example of how freaking good this guy is. God bless them both. This was terrific. The Young Bucks versus Top Flight. We're going for a ride! I kind of like the start of their music. Such a shame that Darius Martin just seems to be bitten by the injury bug. I feel so bad for that dude. Because honestly, out of him and his brother Dante, I think Darius is arguably the more charismatic of the two. Dante might be, have to have the edge with the high flying, but I think his brother actually, he could be more of a franchise star if he can stay healthy. Fingers crossed going forward. But this small little glimpse of time where he was finally back for a couple of weeks and they had that clash with the Bucks, it's almost like they knew He wasn't going to be able to stick around. So they were like, let's do this now. And they did it. And it's exactly what I wanted it to be. I was talking about how I'm a big meat and potatoes kind of guy. Doesn't mean that I don't love a flippy fly floppy spot fest. And this is exactly what that was. Flippy fly floppy spot fest. Absolutely phenomenal. There was never any doubt in my mind until there was that the Bucks were going to win. Because it's like, it's the Young Bucks. Of course they're going to beat the new rookie guys. But they even got me to suspend disbelief a little bit towards the end when Top Flight was stringing together some of their incredible offense. I was like, maybe they're going to pull the rug out from under the Bucks. That would be really interesting. Ultimately, maybe they were heartbroken at the end. But oh boy, what a sprint this was. CM Punk versus Dax Harwood in what Punk has said is, to his mind, the most perfect match he has had, where just everything clicked, just click, clickety click. And he said that is a testament to how freaking good Dax Harwood is. And honestly, I can see it. I'm a huge fan of Dax Harwood. He's so freaking old school. I love it. He just looks like a territory guy straight out of the early 80s, which is exactly what he's going for, and he does it. He lives the gimmick, baby, and he eats, sleeps, and breathes pro wrestling, and I love that so much. And CM Punk, you could see, even as the veteran, the more experienced guy with the huge history of work behind him, he's kind of the fan going in there. You can tell he wants to have a great match with Dax. And he does. It's terrific. Just a real, what I would call a meat and potatoes pro wrestling match. And I love meat and potatoes. They're the two staple parts of any meal. And this is the staple part of any pro wrestling diet. Go check it out. Dante Martin versus Fenix. Ray Fenix. Oh my goodness. Someone who you have to occasionally go, Is this dude human, or is there a little something going on here? Are you sure he doesn't have an X gene? Because sometimes he can just like defy gravity with what he does, which can also be said for Dante Martin. So of course you put these two guys together and it's going to be bonkers, balls to the wall. Bet Jim Cornette's a huge fan, God bless him. But this is exactly what it needed to be. Two flippy floppy crazy high flyers going through bonkers high spots, no selling everything, and entertaining the bejesus out of the crowd. You know what? I think I'm going to stop doing this video right now. Go watch it again. Won't take long because it's not even a long match. But oh my goodness, they crammed so much into it. This is easily one of my faves. Of course it is. It's on the list. Sammy Guevara versus Cody Rhodes for the AEW TNT Championship. This is a match that I wasn't planning to enjoy, because I wasn't a big fan of Cody Rhodes. I wasn't a big fan of Sammy Guevara. And honestly, I think that ladder matches are overplayed. But all three of those ingredients came together and made an absolute barn burner. And I gotta doff my cap to those guys. They killed it. Because, I didn't like, this was Cody at his most Cody-ish, which people didn't like because it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, you love the sport so much and you want to give so much of yourself to it and get yourself over on top of everyone else. It's like, oh, make sure that everyone knows that I do love this business more than anyone else, because I will give myself the opportunity to show that. That's what always kind of stuck in my craw with Cody Rhodes. But then again, he was phenomenal in this match, so fair play to him. And then Sammy risked death on several occasions, which I don't want to encourage. I'm actually one of those grumpy old people who'll be like, well, maybe just actually try grabbing a hold and doing some storytelling once in a while. But still, I will then completely mark out when I see someone do something insane. And we saw a lot of that in this match. So much drama going on. It told a great story. Yes. Despite myself, this was fantastic. Dax Harwood versus Cash Wheeler in the Owen Hart Cup. For a Bret Hart masturbatory tribute match, this was pretty freaking good. I love both of these guys, especially Dax. I think Dax is really terrific. It's his look. It's the moustache, the bald head. He just looks like such a throwback territory guy, which is exactly what he's going for, and he does it so well. And that ain't taken away from Cash. Cash is a superb mechanic as well. As Steve Austin would say, both these guys are carpenters. They can kind of that was more of a Jake Roberts kind of voice. But you know what I'm saying. They are so good at building up their opponents with their kind of technical prowess. And these two guys button heads together. I love the story that they told, where they are just two best friends, an amazing tag team, but they both want the same thing. They both want to win the Owen Hart Cup. Told a tremendous story, and you kind of knew what it was going to be going in. They were going to start out friendly, little handshake, squeezy squeeze, and then tempos were going to start to kick off. But that was exactly what we wanted to see. That was exactly what we got, with some lovely Bret Hart callback spots throughout the match as well. These two guys put on a lovely little story. And sometimes that's just what I want. A lovely little story. And man, yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of this. Hey there, gang. If you enjoyed this episode and this channel in general, then maybe you might want to head over to my brand spanking new channel, Model Behaviour Wrestling. For all your pro wrestling content from WWE to AEW, New Japan, and all points in between, you can head over there right now, subscribe, and the channel will launch officially on August 1st with a whole bunch of videos already there for your binging enjoyment. So guys, head on over, Model Behaviour Wrestling, and be a part of the whole new era of the Model Behaviour brand, expanding throughout the world like the juggernaut that it is in my mind. Head on over. Enjoy. Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly appearing on the list again because, man, if we're just talking bell to bell, this dude, he's just, everything he does is like liquid butter, man. It's so smooth, and he just has this look on his face that you want to punch because he knows he is so good. And then Moxley, he's the perfect guy to punch him. So that works out really well. And this was for the this wasn't for the interim championship. This was a qualifying match to get there. So the result was pretty much never in doubt. You knew Moxley was going through, but that's where you get to have that little bit of suspension of disbelief. Because whenever Kyle O'Reilly is in a match, there's always the potential that they might choose to swerve us all and elevate him because he does have that ability. So when Moxley finally got the win, that was to be predicted, but I always felt there was just a little chance, maybe O'Reilly might take it, because I believe that he can do. He's got those technical moves in him where at any moment he could shock the world by getting a submission on Moxley, and these two guys just battered the living heck out of each other to the point where actually Kyle O'Reilly needs to recover and rest and recuperate, and I hope he gets back in the ring very, very soon. But man, what a contest these guys had. The House of Black versus the Death Triangle. Two awesome, badass teams that almost unfortunately kind of cancel each other out being in the same promotion because they both fill exactly the same role of an awesome, dark, badass kind of trio. But they are slightly different flavors, and House of Black seem to be the ones who are being given more of that monster push. I kind of feel bad for Death Triangle because they should be the ones getting that monster push, but it's like the push has to be split between the two of them. And Death Triangle seem to take more losses than they do wins, but they kind of remind me of guys like Jake the Snake or Ted DiBiase, where it's like they're so talented and so over with the crowd, they don't actually need to win all the time. Just by coming out and wrestling masterpieces and looking like badasses, the crowd are like, yeah, these guys are still over, no question. And honestly, these six men tore the house down when they went at it. And I don't feel we've ever really had a full conclusion to this feud. They've kind of just sort of all moved on to their own different things. And that's fine, because that means hopefully in time, they're going to circle back to one another. And when they do, you know they're going to make magic. Will Ospreay versus Dax Harwood from AEW Road Rager. It's Will Ospreay. He's just liquid lightning in the ring. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Possibly the best physical athlete bell to bell that, I don't know, maybe the wrestling world has ever seen. I'm calling it now. Whether you like his character, personality or not, that's not important. We're talking about the best matches. And honestly, I think Ospreay maybe has a hard time. I don't know. I stay off of Twitter because it's just a hive of scum and villainy. Why do I want to see that? But just watching the characters in the ring, this dude is phenomenal. And oh yeah, he's wrestling Dax Harwood, one of the best in the business right now. So of course, this match for me as a pro wrestling fanboy, I was like, yes, more of this, please. I'll be very happy to see it. And what a great contrast of styles as well. And as they always say, styles make fights. So we had Will Ospreay with his incredible, explosive moveset. And then Dax, who just as his character, as he's honed, just grinds people down with fantastic pro wrestling. What a wonderful combination, these guys. What a wonderful match. I'm stumbling over my words because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Every time Ospreay gets in the ring, I know that I'm in for a treat. And this was exactly that. Absolutely terrific. So we've had some nonsense on this list, and now we can have some uber violence. And who better to bring uber violence than Lance Archer as he challenged Hangman Adam Page in a Texas death match. I love Hangman. I love Archer. I would almost go so far as to say Archer is in my boy stable, but he's too talented for that. But he has never quite risen to that main event status. But that's fine. Sometimes being the gatekeeper to the main event, nothing wrong with that. That's a solid role that you can have for your entire career and get well paid for it. And I hope that Archer is, because he deserves it. Hangman, I'm a huge Hangman fan. And I'm with the folks who say that, yeah, his title reign it didn't quite have that spark that the Chase did. But he had fantastic matches. And every time that I want to sort of justify the quality of Hangman's title reign, I'll think to myself, well, there was that death match with Lance Archer. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. Lance, I cringe a little bit every time he does wrestle, though, because he's in his mid-40s and he does insane stuff that someone half his age shouldn't be trying. And I'm like, oh, dude, you're so talented. You're so good. You're so freaking huge. Just be that guy. You don't have to do moonsaults, man. Just stand your ground and batter people. That will make me so happy to see. But yeah, what a fantastic match this was. Just as Dusty Rhodes would say, it's violence for the sake of violence. And it was wonderful. And with the handspring buckshot lariat off the referee to finish the match, mwah! Chef's kiss again. This was fantastic. Now, this next one is one that I want to be remembered. I don't want it to be lost to history, because the problem with pro wrestling these days is everything moves so fast, things get forgotten. But come on! Wheeler Yuta versus Jon Moxley. That was a great little story that was told. Oh my goodness. We had all the MJF stuff with CM Punk and then Wardlow. That was great storytelling. Before that, we had Hangman and the Elite. This little story of Wheeler Yuta wanting to prove himself to Jon Moxley, William Regal, the Blackpool Combat Club was such a great condensed story. That was so good because it didn't outstay its welcome. It lasted about a month, basically. They told Wheeler Yuta, you're not good enough, you're not tough enough, but try a little harder and we'll talk. And boy howdy, yeah, he tried pretty freaking hard. Bled buckets, and the crowd has just got so behind Wheeler Yuta. He's such a great underdog without being like a pathetic underdog. Because sometimes people, or there's a bit of a WWE kind of trope where it's like, oh, to be an underdog, you need to be just like beaten up all the time and kind of pathetic and people will root for you. No, you can still get beaten up, but you can be a badass who gets beaten up. Wheeler Yuta is a badass who gets beaten up. Whereas, for example, Spike Dudley is kind of, a wimp who gets beaten up. No disrespect to Spike Dudley. I'm a fan, but it's just a different character. Wheeler Yuta got the crowd behind him because he has grit. And no matter how many times Moxley drops him on his head, he's like, come on! That was so great. And when he made his comeback and he was dropping Mox on his bonds, that was terrific. The sight of him just covered in his crimson mask. Goosebumps, man. This match, perfection. Hey, you want a little hot, spicy take that everyone already knows already? Konosuke Takeshita is going to be a freaking massive star. Yep, and he proved it when he wrestled Hangman Adam Page. What an incredible showcase this was for the challenger. Takeshita, I didn't know anything about him until he appeared in AEW. But then as soon as I saw him, just wow. This guy, as JR would say, this guy's a thoroughbred. This guy's a stud. He really is. He wrestles as though he is constantly at super move. And honestly, in today's wrestling environment, that's fine. If you're in the 80s or the early 90s, you'd probably have veterans telling you, slow down, tell a story, you gotta build it up. And maybe he'll learn to do that over time. But right now, he is just Super Saiyan right from the start. He's an athletic freak. This dude. And I love that. And very often you'll have sort of that technical ability and that athletic ability, but you might be a little undersized or something. This dude's big. This is a big dude. I don't want to like sort of just, say it, but I see the next Tanahashi in this guy, which is kind of an easy thing to say. It's like, oh, yeah, he's a Japanese guy who's incredibly athletic and talented. Oh, but this is the next Tanahashi. But, like, genuinely, there's a spark of charisma and it's explosivity in his moves. That's what it is. It's the explosivity in his moveset. And that was shown in his match with Hangman. And Hangman, again, what an underrated, I think it will be an underrated title reign, because he didn't have any great stories. That was the thing. His march to the championship was such a great story that when he got it, it felt like the story was completed, and then he just had some title defenses. But this was an absolute standout as a fantastic showcase for Takeshita. It actually reminded me a little bit of Bret Hart and the 1-2-3 Kid, where it's the champion who is like, I am the champion, I'm at the top of my game, and then this other guy who's like still trying to establish himself, having this incredible back and forth where the champion is like, wow, this guy's really friggin' good, I'm gonna have to turn it up now. And Hangman did turn it up, he won the match, but what a fantastic contest it was. This is a forgotten gem, go check it out. Will Ospreay versus Orange Cassidy from Forbidden Door. This is one that I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, oh, okay, well, I guess this will be good. When it was announced, we were like, yeah, I mean, Orange Cassidy is awesome, but Will Ospreay, there are so many other people that maybe were more main eventish that we would have got more sort of excited about. But then you can tell, Orange Cassidy in particular, he knew, first of all, I'm going to prove him wrong. And secondly, damn right I'm going to prove him wrong. Because that's the thing, people do underestimate Orange Cassidy because that is kind of his gimmick. But also, I mean, he's got to have that gimmick because otherwise he would arguably be just like another Kip Sabian, flippy-floppy guy who's smaller than your average wrestler and not really considered to be too important. No offense, Kip Sabian. I want to see big things from him when he finally takes that box off of his head. But yeah, this match surprised a lot of people, myself included, because even though I know what Cassidy can do, I'm still surprised when I see it. And Will Ospreay, he's just the Don. Man, I know that opinions on him are split, but man, when he's in the ring and just using that insane, scary combination of power and speed that, like, normally when someone puts on more muscle mass, they sacrifice their speed, and Will Ospreay was like, nah, I'm just going to keep both, actually, yeah. And fair play to him, he has put on an absolute masterpiece with Orange Cassidy, told a wonderful story, and again, put a little notch on his gun belt to show that he is really arguably the best in the world right now. Yeah, I'll say it. FTR versus the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championship. What a sequel this was to their previous match from over a year ago. And now both teams are even more honed. If that's even possible. I can't help but feel that both of these teams have like maxed out their RPG skill tree by now. There's nowhere else to go, you think, until you see them in another match. And it's like, oh no, they can still somehow magically create another gear to go up into. What a wonderful combination of both teams just being amazing. I'm not even going to wax lyrical on it for that long because you know, fantastic. And the best part was FTR won this match, meaning that these guys, they won a piece. So we gotta have a decider at some point, and when that happens, man, I can't wait. Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho at Revolution. Eddie Kingston absolutely has become one of my all-time favorites. Like I say all-time, I mean of all time over the last 2 years. I'm only new to the party with Eddie Kingston. I know he was, in PWG and Chikara and all those other ones. I'm not that clued up with the real indie stuff. So I only saw a little glimpse of him in NWA. I heard him talking and I was like, wow, this guy, he's got the gift of the gab. And then, of course, he comes into AEW and I'm just like, wow, okay, yeah, all right, I'm sold. And I find out what a massive nerd he is for All Japan and classics, and he just comes over, A, so likable outside of pro wrestling, and then B, so passionate and charismatic in pro wrestling. Him versus Jericho was a match made in heaven. And Jericho was really wearing out his welcome as a babyface because he's just not a natural babyface. He is a heel, and this cemented it. And oh my goodness, just Eddie Kingston dumping him on his head in the very first minute of the match. Kudos to Jericho for putting Kingston over the way he did. It kicked off a storyline that is still ongoing and gave us the Jericho Appreciation Society for who knows how many weeks, the revolutionary force in sports entertainers. which I never get tired of hearing. But yeah, this first meeting between the two set the table, and we've had so much good stuff after that. Absolutely loved this. Hangman Adam Page versus Bryan Danielson for the AEW Championship. January 5th, what a way to kick off the year. What a way to have a good time. My goodness, they had their 60-minute absolute classic. And it was, look, a lot of people will sometimes say, oh, well, this match was super long. That means it must be good. No. I've seen some 60-minute stinkers in my time, but that first one was actually terrific. And now they condensed all that greatness into a shorter frame of time, and man, absolutely killed it. And this was Bryan Danielson wanting to cement Hangman as a great champion. And he did it. And Hangman, he was like, okay, my assignment is to prove to the world that I deserve to be AEW champion. Let's friggin' go. And they did. What a phenomenal clash this was. You've got like the passion and the tenacity and just the grit, cowboy grit of Adam Page. I couldn't even remember his name because I was so into the match. That's how into it I was. And then Bryan Danielson just exuding his wonderful dickhead heel persona, which is so much fun. It's amazing that someone who is so likable in real life can just portray such a prick. And he did such a good job of it. A wonderful match. And again, one of those ones that you look to when you think, Hangman's title reign wasn't that great. Wasn't it? Wasn't it? Actually, no, it wasn't because it lacked storylines. But the matches bell to bell, phenomenal. Go back and watch it. It was fantastic. And folks, that does it for my top 20 AEW matches of 2022. I am very concerned about how I'm going to figure out a top 10 by the end of this year because there is just so much great stuff to choose from. But that is why I love AEW. And if you love this video, or even if you just mildly enjoyed it, then be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get this channel going because, man, I'm so happy to be finally talking wrestling. So until next time, guys, keep displaying... No, that's the other channel. Keep showing Model Behaviour Wrestling. I'm going to workshop that. Hey there, gang. If you enjoyed this episode and this channel in general, then maybe you might want to head over to my new, brand spanking new channel, Model Behaviour Wrestling. For all your pro wrestling content from WWE to AEW, New Japan, and all points in between, you can head over there right now, subscribe, and the channel will launch officially on August 1st with a whole bunch of videos already there for your binging enjoyment. So guys, head on over, Model Behaviour Wrestling, and be a part of the whole new era of the Model Behaviour brand, expanding throughout the world like the juggernaut that it is in my mind. Head on over. Enjoy.
Cup of coffee.